Hey, what's going on, Renaissance Lifers? Welcome back to Renaissance Life TV. On today's show, we're talking about how to cook with more flavor and make your food taste better. Welcome back, guys. If you're new to this channel, Renaissance Life TV is a channel where we take life to a whole new level. Every week, we put out videos on personal growth and a different perspective on navigating life and relationships. We put out videos on Tuesdays at 4 p.m. Eastern each week. Okay, so cooking. On this video, I really want to go through some basic tips. I'm going to do 4 tips and tricks on how to get your food to taste better instantly. I think that cooking is a really important skill to have, to develop. We all gotta eat, we all have to nourish ourselves, and being able to cook is a really great way to build onto your personal skills and abilities. So when we're talking about cooking and eating food in general, I think for the most part, everyone wants to eat something that tastes good. And of course, taste is subjective, right? Different things taste good to different people. Different people like things different ways, different cultures cook differently, and depending on where you are in the world, different spices and things like that are used. I kind of want to go over a baseline for what you can do in order to make your food taste better. All right, so let's jump right into it. Okay, so the first tip in getting your food to taste better instantly is salt. Now, salt is your friend. You shouldn't be afraid of salt. I mean, of course, nobody wants their food to be over salted, but not having enough salt will always leave your food tasting sort of bland. And the really powerful thing about salt is that salt has the ability of enhancing all the other flavors that are already in your food. So that's really what's great in it. And so there are references to salt as far back as thousands of years. And if you don't have salt in your food, that's going to leave your food lacking in general. Now, here's a bonus tip for salt. A lot of times people will try to salt their food and end up not being able to get enough salt in the food, particularly when they're boiling things or cooking things that are dense. And the reason why that is if you're boiling something and you boil it in water and then try to add salt to it afterwards, the salt is not going to be able to penetrate that item. The salt will kind of just be around it. So let's say you boil a potato and then you boiled it in water without salt, take it out of the water and make a sauce. The sauce that you season and salt will have the flavor and will have the salt, but the interior of the potato will taste like a bland potato. So the trick for solving this is to salt your water. So if you're boiling water and you're gonna boil a potato in it, you wanna put enough salt that the water stops tasting like water. So that's the trick there. If you're boiling pasta, the same thing. You kind of wanna put enough salt that you start to taste salted water. It goes from the place where it tastes like just straight water to where it leaves the taste of just water and now tastes like some sort of a foodie item. So that's kind of like my trick. When you're making rice and you're boiling rice and you put water in the rice, you want to season or salt your water that you're going to boil the rice in, because that way the rice itself will take on the flavor of the water and will have salt in it already. So that's the first trick. All right, the second tip for getting more flavorful food and getting your food to just taste better in general is to use aromatic vegetables. Now, what are aromatic vegetables? These are vegetables that lend fragrance to your food. These are things like onions, peppers, garlic. All of those, they give you flavor, like taste, but they're also very fragrant vegetables. Now, why is it important to have vegetables or things that add scent to your food if we're talking about having your food taste better? And the reason why that is because there's a very strong relationship between smell and taste. If something smells good, it's generally going to taste better to you because you use your sense of smell in order to taste your food. And the best example of this is, think about when you have a cold and your nose is stuffed. You ever notice that you have a stuffy nose and suddenly you can't taste anything? the food that you're eating, someone's like, this is so good, and you're like, I literally can't taste anything. Nothing happened to your tongue, but the mere fact that you can't smell means that you have no ability to taste the food. So vegetables like peppers, vegetables like onions, vegetables like garlic, all those things add fragrance to your food along with taste and make your dishes more tasty. So you may not even have to put as much salt if you're using things like onions and peppers and things like that. Now, if you don't like onions and peppers, you can probably find some other aromatic vegetables, but you're missing out, trust me. Try to put them in even. All right, so my next tip for getting more flavorful food is to use fresh ingredients. Fresh ingredients will impact the taste of your food dramatically. So that may be the difference between using something that's canned versus fresh, using something that has, instead of using something that has been sitting, going out and getting a fresh version of it, right? So this is kind of similar to something that's stale. If you have cereal that's been sitting for a long time, it gets stale. It doesn't taste as good as if it was freshly bought cereal. So you want your ingredients to be as fresh as possible, as fresh as you can get them. So, I don't mean here go out and, get it straight from the farm and ruin your budget if you have a budget. But whatever you can afford to be able to get things freshly, that's something that you can do. As you can see here, I decided I wanted to make some eggs. So I went out to my backyard, to my chicken coop. And so here you can see me going through my chicken run and picking up one of these chickens to show it off. And picking up one of my black silky chickens to do some show and tell. But I then go here and check my nesting box to see if the chickens have laid any eggs today. And, well, what do you know? They're eggs. There are 2 eggs in this compartment and 2 eggs in the other compartment actually. So I'm just gonna collect these eggs, and all together I've gotten 4 eggs today. So the chickens are laying about 4 eggs. So this is probably the freshest way you can get eggs. So that's part of the reason why I got backyard chickens to have on my property. So that way we can have eggs daily, because we eat a lot of eggs in my household. So I'm gonna make my eggs, and one of the first things I'm gonna do here is, along with using fresh ingredients, I'm gonna go ahead and pair that with using aromatic vegetables. So onions can almost go in anything, for instance. So because I'm gonna be making eggs and I wanna put onions in my eggs, I'm gonna dice my onions really finely, because I don't want large chunks of onions in my food. And particularly because eggs are like a dainty type of meal, right? They're not super hearty or heavy. It's not like a chunky, meaty soup with potatoes and things like that, where onion would get lost and just kind of get soft in there and you wouldn't really notice it. It's something really thin, really, tender. So you want your onions to be more finely diced. And believe it or not, the size that you chop your vegetables, even like an onion, can also impact the flavor of your food. If you catch like a chunk of onion that's like an inch thick in your food, your whole meal is gonna taste like an onion, right? So that's impacting the flavor of your food, versus if that same onion was chopped very finely, you wouldn't taste the onion, or that taste, that flavor of the onion would be disseminated more evenly throughout the meal. So each spoon of a soup that you have has a maybe small piece of onion, which matches the ratio of how much you're gonna have in your spoon. That's a little bonus tip on how to impact the flavor, is how finely you chop up your vegetables in your meal to have, a more delicate flavored meal, or have a meal that every single bite is super robust and impactful. All right, so those are my 4 main tips. And before I end this video, I've got one last bonus tip for you on how to make your food more flavorful. Now, this may seem really silly, but I am amazed at how many people don't do this. And what this is that when you cook, I want you to taste your food. Yeah, I actually said that. I actually said that you should taste the food that you're cooking. I can't tell you how many times I've heard of people cooking their food and not knowing how it tastes until the very end when the meal is plated on their plate. That is a cardinal sin to cooking. If you look at any chef, at various points during the preparation of a meal, whether it's a soup being made, whatever it is, they're tasting it, right? You're checking it for taste, for flavor. Is it missing something? Does it have too much of something? You never want to be surprised at the end of your meal. You should already know, probably about midway through your meal, what it's gonna taste like, right? And that is the time midway, early on during your meal, where you have the opportunity to adjust the taste. It's kind of like an art here, right? So if I salted my water and I'm cooking the thing, and at the end, when it's boiling, I taste the water, blow it on the spoon so that way it's not too hot and I'm not gonna burn myself. But I taste the water, I'm like, not enough salt. I'm gonna add a little bit more salt. Taste again and see if the salt level is where I want it to be. If I'm making a soup, if I'm making a chili, whatever it is that I'm making, I'm tasting it somewhere in the process of it actually cooking to see how the flavors are coming together. Does it need more garlic? Is it too sweet? Maybe I need to add something more spicy. Maybe I need thyme. You know, is it too tart? Maybe I need to add some basil to mellow out the flavor, right? All those things are things that you can do while your food is cooking. So tasting your food is super important. You don't want to simply make a meal without knowing how it tastes till the very end. So that's my bonus tip on how to make your food more flavorful and to just get better tasting dishes in general. You know, the other thing I would say here is you want to try to get a baseline of what good food tastes like. And part of that is going to different restaurants. You know, maybe you don't know, and you know, taste is so subjective, but if you hear really good reviews and people are talking about a particular food or a particular place that's good, taste that food, but don't just eat it and ravage it. Try to think and figure out, what is it about this meal that makes it taste so good? Is it that there's like a hint of garlic in it? Is it that like the salt level is really good, not too much, not too little, but there's a good amount of salt? Like, try to, almost like a wine connoisseur or someone who's like tasting wine and commenting on the qualities of the wine. You want to do the same thing with food, because that way you really start to understand the properties of food, the properties of the ingredients that make up your food, and then you can replicate those same things at home. So once you have a baseline of what good food tastes like, what good salt levels are for you or for people generally, kind of like a median across the board, then you can aim for that in your cooking and in your meals. So I hope this video was helpful. I think cooking is a big part of personal growth. It's just another aspect that can build you up as a person, make you more confident, make you more secure, make you more well-rounded. So if you like this type of content, please don't forget to like and subscribe to this channel. If you have any other tips on how to make your food more flavorful and taste better in general, please drop that in the comment section below. And until next time, I'm wishing you health and happiness. Cheers.